about the District Committee on Ministry under the Texas Annual Conference Administration and the Board of Ordained Ministry under the Texas Annual Conference Administration. I grew up in the Texas Annual Conference Administration because my father, John Chester Dowden, was employed under the Texas Annual Conference Administration, and his wife was my mother, Grace Dowden. And John Dowden, who was employed under the Texas Annual Conference Administration, was a sexual predator. He was a sexual predator before he became employed under the Texas Annual Conference Administration. He was a sexual predator before I was born. And for a hobby as a child, he would drown cats. True story. I know this because he told me. He didn't describe it in that way. My father could describe things that he did and make it seem like it wasn't a big deal. And I was young and naive, and I was a child at the time. In 2017, I obtained a recorded conversation where I directly asked my mother, Grace Dowden, if she drugged me with codeine so that I would not know that my father was molesting me. And her response was a resounding yeah. And there was absolutely no remorse and no regret because she knew what she got away with. And she didn't know I was recording her fat ass, and she didn't think anybody would believe me. And my father passed away in 2012. My mother passed away in 2018. So that recorded conversation that I obtained was a year before my mother passed away. And the Texas Annual Conference has a history of employing clergy who are capable of causing great harm to people in their congregation. And if you are a survivor of sexual assault from a United Methodist clergy and you speak out, you will be targeted by the Texas Annual Conference, and you will be retaliated against for speaking out because they like to keep their victims of abuse from their clergy silent and compliant. And I am not one of those. I also experienced retaliation from the Texas Annual Conference, which is why I know this. And I was forced into supervised visitation based on false accusations by my ex-husband. I found out at the time that I had to go to these supervised visitations that the Texas Annual Conference was involved with the Domestic Relations Office because the Domestic Relations Office is using 2 United Methodist churches in the Houston area as visitation sites. I also know that the Texas Annual Conference is financially stable enough that they can allow the Domestic Relations Office to use as many churches as needed as visitation sites without charging rent. The Domestic Relations Office is a very corrupt organization, and they use churches so no one will look at or focus on their corruption. The Texas Annual Conference failed to inform the Domestic Relations Office and also the visiting parents and the custodial parents that they have a history of employing clergy who are capable of causing great harm, either through sexual assault, by sexually assaulting a minor, or by murder. And they did not divulge this history to them. I know this history because I grew up in the Texas Annual Conference administration, and I paid attention. I also consulted with 2 attorneys who were associated with the Texas Annual Conference administration. And in my mental illness, supposedly diagnosed by clergy, by their armchair expertise in the Texas Annual Conference administration, I was able to obtain 2 attorneys pro bono who consulted with me for more than a year. One of them was Harrison Fisher, who consulted with me regarding the Texas Annual Conference and scammed me into believing I could sue them. And Elsie Martin Simon, who assisted me in my family court custody case. I was warned by both attorneys about speaking out against the Texas Annual Conference administration. And Harrison Fisher shared with me that the Texas Annual Conference would, if we went to the media, that the Texas Annual Conference would say that I was mentally ill because, after all, an administration that has a history of employing abusers would clearly be experts on mental health and mental well-being, right? So Harrison Fisher informed me that the Texas Annual Conference would say that I was mentally ill and they would help my ex-husband get our sons away from me because clearly, I guess, the Texas Annual Conference feels that child abusers are capable of raising kids. And so I didn't understand at the time how this could happen. And it happened because I had an attorney, a family law attorney, who grew up within the Texas Annual Conference administration. And she had also said, she had told me before the custody trial to keep my mouth shut about the Texas Annual Conference or else. I responded with, or else what? And her response, she said nothing. She also told me and warned me that to be careful speaking out against the Texas Annual Conference because I did not know what legal officials were involved with the Texas Annual Conference. However, this was not news to me. I already knew this, but I didn't care. And so that is a part of the information on how I experienced retaliation from the Texas Annual Conference administration for speaking out against sexual assault and sexual harassment. During my supervised visitation, I was sexually harassed at South Main Baptist Church, and I was also sexually harassed at St. Stephen's United Methodist Church in front of my kids. I understand I deserved sexual harassment. However, I don't think that my kids deserve to witness that. And I don't think that it was appropriate for it to take place in front of my children. But I understand that that opinion is not a popular opinion. And the sexual harassment that I experienced at St. Stephen's United Methodist Church during the supervised visitation took place in front of staff of St. Stephen's United Methodist Church and also took place in front of staff of Domestic Relations Office. And nothing was done. I am going to continue and I'm going to read the District's Committee on Ministry, the basics for DCOMs, for the Board of Ordination of the Texas Annual Conference. And this is showing their process of how they select clergy. And then I'm going to read another article, and it will be my last article, about Michael Tabb, who murdered his wife in Troop, Texas. And Michael Tabb was employed under the Texas Annual Conference administration. After every committee meeting, within days of a DCOM representative, registrar chair, DAA, or DS, district superintendent, should one report all committee actions to the CRA on the one-page DCOM action report page, and 2, write a letter to each candidate and his or her mentor clearly indicating the committee's decisions on any recommendations or requirements. if the candidate will continue to another step in candidacy, include a copy of the checklist for that stage in candidacy with the letter. Regardless of decisions made, the candidate should know the committee to be a caring community of Christians. They consider themselves a caring community of Christians unless you are a survivor of sexual assault by one of their clergy. After that, they don't give a shit about you. And they will retaliate. When a difficult decision is made and the candidate is not encouraged to continue, a personal contact should be planned for the days that follow. Vocational alternatives can be explored with the candidate as assistance given in locating other employment. Candidates who experience difficulties in dealing with the board's decisions should be informed about any available pastoral care options. First of all, I'm going to say that this is an absolute load of shit, because if I had gone through the candidacy program and questions, I would not have been approved. But I am okay with that, because I would rather pick up garbage on the side of the road than be involved with that. However, I would not be selected because I was sexually assaulted by a clergy, but they wouldn't have a problem selecting someone who is capable of sexual assault of a minor or who is capable of murder. Record keeping. The district committee shall maintain a service record and file on every local pastor and candidate for the ordained ministry until the individual becomes an associate or provisional member of the annual conference. A copy of the file shall then be forwarded to the CRA or Board of Ordained Ministry registrar. The records and files of the committee are kept on behalf of the annual conference and shall be maintained under guidelines provided by the General Council on Finance and Administration, GCFA, C 666.8. So next I'm going to read an article on Michael Tabb. This is from the World Faith News Archives, www.fn.org. Texas pastor charged with wife's murder. From News Desk at umcom.org. Date Thursday, August 29th, 2002. August 29th, 2002, news media contact Joretta Purdue, and by United Methodist News Service. Okay. A United Methodist pastor in Texas is free on bond after being charged in the beating death of his wife. The Reverend Michael Tabb, 41, was arrested August 14th for the murder of Marla Tabb, 35, in the East Texas town of Troop on August 5th. He was released on a $50,000 bond posted by family members. The case will be presented to the grand jury, but no date has been set. In June, Tabb began a two-church appointment that includes First United Methodist Church in Troop, Texas, and Walnut Grove United Methodist Church in a nearby community. He has been serving as a Navy chaplain since the beginning of 1998, which was about the time that he married Marla Tabb, his second wife. The couple, both from Texas, had returned to the state from Camp Lejeune North Carolina. Accompanied by his lawyer, Tab had voluntarily surrendered to authorities. Tab is accused of beating his wife to death in the master bedroom of their parsonage home. Authorities said they found traces of blood on his shoes and in the bed of his truck. The blood samples are undergoing DNA analysis. The murder weapon believed to have been a wooden table leg has not been found. The police continue to collect information. We're definitely doing a lot of follow-up, said Lieutenant Larry Wigginton of the Smith County Sheriff's Department. We're very aggressive on this case. Tab called the sheriff's office at 5:50 p.m. on August 5th to report that he had found the front door of his home ajar when he returned from running errands. According to the arrest affidavit, he had entered to find his wife's body on the floor in their bedroom. Tab said he had taken their 2-year-old son with him, and their 6-week-old was in a playpen in the living room. Tab said he knelt beside his wife and touched her arm, then left the room. The affidavit reported that the traces of blood were found on Tab's shoes. Authorities said the pattern of the blood on his shoes was inconsistent with those of someone walking into a crime scene to give aid. The day after the murder, detectives found traces of blood in the pickup. Both the shoes and the truck appeared to have been cleaned, and the arrest affidavit said the couple had both verbal and physical altercations during their marriage. A memorial service was held for Marla Tab at First United Methodist Church in Tyler during the Sunday service, August 11th. Her funeral had been August 9th at her family's church in Beaumont, Texas. The Texas Annual Conference Regional Conference has appointed the Reverend George Helton, who is retired, to serve as interim pastor for the churches, and it is providing counselors to children, youth, adults, and both congregations, according to the Reverend David McKay, conference spokesman in Houston, Tab, who was ordained as an elder in 1996, had served churches in the conference's Beaumont and Houston North districts before becoming a Navy chaplain. And this was United Methodist News Service. Photos and stories are available at htt:// umns.umc.org. So clearly he had been a clergy at other churches, and it is highly likely that there were issues at those churches as well. And it is possible that there were issues at those other churches. And like previous clergy where there were issues, he was allowed to come back. And this resulted in a murder within the Texas Annual Conference administration. Anytime there is someone who is capable of this horrific act or abuse or harming someone, there are always red flags. I also wanted to say that if I look exhausted, it is because I am. I am having to DoorDash so I can get money for my thyroid medication. And right now, there's just not a break in sight. At times when I am exhausted, I tend to slur my speech because I have an autoimmune disease. And so right now, I am just dealing with plain extreme exhaustion, and I still have to go work so I can get my medication because right now I currently cannot afford to get my medication. So this is why I am sharing why I probably look fatigued in some of my videos.